Welcome to the Uncovered Podcast, brought to you by Mana Insurance Group, where we pull back the curtain on the insurance industry and provide valuable insights, guidance, and truth so that you can make informed decisions when choosing the right insurance.
Hey everybody, Dan Vander Kooi here with the Uncovered Podcast. I'm really excited today to have Caleb Hazel. He's our lead commercial sales director. Caleb, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. So you've been in insurance for what, just over 10 years now?
Yeah. So I started in 2013.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Right.
Year 11 right now.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about your journey through that, what you've learned. I know we both started very similar. We're kind of just given like a Yellow Pages book and started going and here learn insurance. But what you've learned over time, where you come, and then you specialize a bit in the construction industry. I mean, you do everything, but that's kind of been a focus and a niche for you too. Yep. So maybe just share a little bit about your journey, what you've learned, and kind of even where you see the market today.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I got into insurance because a friend of mine who I respected and loved owned an insurance agency in Bellingham, and I said I want to be like him when I grow up. Tim Dickerson, shout out if you ever listen to this. But I didn't know a ton about the industry, and like you said, you kind of just call your friends and family and start figuring out how to sell insurance. And through that, I found success with a lot of local contractors, construction-related companies, and ended up focusing on that as probably my main source of business. And like you said, we do a little bit of everything, and those contractor connections can lead into real estate owners and multiple other downstream industries. But I like contractors in particular because it feels like you almost get to participate in building things, even though, we sit behind a desk and what we do is coverage analysis and brokering of policies and all that good stuff. But it's really, really fun when you see a new house get built or a new commercial building and you go, oh, I know the guy who did the HVAC on that or did the site prep and the dirt work. Makes you feel like you're a part of something beyond just the cubicle. So it's just fun for me. And so, with construction, I train a lot of brokers as well, and did that in my previous company, and then also here at Mana. That's a big part of what I do. And I like contractors because they're more complex from a coverage perspective. If you own a restaurant, the coverages are pretty straightforward and they don't vary a ton carrier to carrier. There's always going to be small differences. But with contractors, your insurance policy language can be night and day difference from one carrier to another, and it can be buried 75 pages into a policy. You may never catch it if you don't read through the whole thing, and even if you did read it, the odds that you understand the language, you might be great, and I do work with buyers that understand their policies well, but we really feel it's our job to understand those policies, to communicate to our clients, what are you covered for and what are you not. And in Washington State in particular, we've seen just the way that the courts have ruled on different construction defects and other types of lawsuits. It's not a friendly state for construction companies. And insurance carriers have responded by putting a ton of limitations into what their policies will actually cover from a liability perspective. I can't tell you the number of times that I've looked at somebody's policy, read through the fine print, asked them, well, hey, what type of projects do you take on? And they say, well, we're working in a subdivision and we're going to be laying the foundations for 25 homes in this subdivision. And you're like, oh, that's awesome. Sounds like a great project. And you read the policy and they're limited to actually only doing 10 homes in a subdivision, but they had no idea. It wasn't communicated to them by whoever their agent was. Their agent may not even know that exclusion exists on the policy. The general contractor didn't catch it, and we're just kind of, sliding by without anybody realizing there's actually no coverage on this policy. And so while you definitely want to look for an option that's affordable and competitive for market rate, you really need to have a relationship of trust with your broker, understand that your team is reading that policy and putting you in a position, asking the questions about your projects, so that you're not running into issues or worst case scenario, getting kicked off of a job site because your insurance isn't compliant.
Well, and a lot of times in that too, a contractor might not even know if they're not speaking that language, right? And that happens a lot, right? There's a lot of times people don't understand the insurance language. And like you said, to some people's credit, yeah, absolutely. They dive in and they know it exactly. And, but there's a lot of people that don't understand it, and they rely on their broker to do that. And I think you said it too, like trust is a big deal and building that relationship. But I think the other thing to hit on is one, as maybe a contractor grows in their career and their company grows too, and all of a sudden they start working for different types of general contractors, that can have a big play in different policy language that's built in, contractual things. What are some of the things that you've seen over time that are a big deal that some of these contractors who start small and they start growing, all of a sudden they kind of get put in from, I'll call it from a minor league to a major league? What are some things that they should be looking out for, or conversations they should have with their broker? And if they're not having those conversations, like, what does that look like? Because that could be scary. They get down the road, right? And then they find out when a class action or a lawsuit's filed, and they have no coverage, right?
Honestly, the biggest emerging issue for contractors in the Pacific Northwest in particular is actually on the auto side. Obviously, we talked some about the liability, but on the auto side, we're seeing a lot more emphasis from the insurance carrier side and also from the courts around driver selection. Now, when you're a growing company, we already know in this economy, it's difficult to find quality labor, people that are going to show up on time, do the job right. And the good people sometimes get recruited away to another company. So the labor force has been a big challenge, and how that relates to commercial auto is carriers will only insure drivers that have relatively clean driving records. There's a point system, and as soon as you have too many violations or even just one violation of a certain type, you're no longer allowed to drive for that company. So if you run a landscaping crew and your foreman gets a DUI, he's now uninsurable.
Yeah. Everywhere,
or you're going to be paying out the nose to, we're talking $10,000 plus a year for one guy to be insured on one truck if there's a DUI situation. So that driver selection is a big deal, and the companies that are being proactive about it, they will run MVRs before hiring. They will implement different new technology. So dash cams are kind of controversial. A lot of people don't like having, so some companies are doing the driver facing dash cams and just a higher level of accountability with really good results. Honestly, from a claims perspective, it does make a difference. But for companies that aren't doing that, you can get telematics installed and have driver scores, make it competitive, pay bonuses to your safest drivers. But really just having that culture of safety around the vehicles in particular is where we see some of the largest claims come from, is when you've got a guy who should not be driving for anybody really, and they have your company name on the side of his truck.
Well, and we're seeing that across the board in the industry. It's not even just in the commercial insurance, the personal lines insurance too. The auto insurance is driving a ton of rate in the state, right? And so we talked about that earlier with Kyle Boone, I think on the last the podcast we did, about just carriers taking rate after rate after rate and filing with the insurance commissioner's office. And now you're seeing that even on the commercial side too. And where companies, you used to always find someone that would just say, hey, we'll play ball on it. And now they're just saying, hey, it's too much of a risk, or we might have to section off this driver like you had mentioned. Tell me what else is going on in the construction industry as far as what you're seeing, and maybe some things that are key to making sure that you're getting, competitive rates, that you're getting the proper coverage that you need, and even kind of choosing through a broker and making sure that they're educated on some of that.
Yeah, no, I think at large what's happening is there's still some uncertainty post-COVID about what is new residential development going to look like. And in Washington, we've compared to other parts of the country, we've been still seeing a lot of new residential development, and that provides work opportunities for everybody. With that residential buzzword, though, I would say that's where it's most important to make sure that your agent, your insurance broker are well aware of your planned projects upcoming. everybody thinks about insurance and they're like, oh man, I got to fill out all these forms and these applications, and why are they asking for all this stuff? There's a really good reason for it. And if you have planned out your job list for the next, 6 months to a year, and if you can provide really good narrative around, well, here are the projects we've completed, here's what we're doing moving forward, a clear understanding of those types of work that you're doing, allows for underwriters to get more comfortable with you as a potential insured of theirs. And it allows your agent to effectively tell your story to the marketplace. You're always going to get the best result when there's trust. Dan's going to laugh at me here, but I always talk about that, the best insurance deals possible is when there's trust from the client to the insurance agent to the insurance company. And when all three of them are working together for a positive outcome, all on the same page, you get the best results. And even beyond that, if you're with an insurance carrier that provides some safety resources and different add-ons that you can participate in, I think shifting the mindset away from, these insurance companies are just about money and whatever, and they are, to an extent. Like
they have to be profitable.
They want to help you with safety because they don't want claims to be filed, but they throw tons and tons of resources for companies. We're talking about contractors in particular, but they'll come out and they'll help you with quality control on job sites, design a fleet safety program that all your employees sign off on, driving standards. And if your agent isn't necessarily, helping you access those things, usually they can. So it's worth being a little bit proactive and hey, we want to review our hiring procedures. Can you guys help? Absolutely. Don't just think of it as buying an insurance policy. Yeah. We want to be an advisor for you. Yeah. So
I would think too, that relationship that the agent then has with the carrier. I mean, you and I were just out of state visiting with a carrier and their entire leadership team. We had their president and VP of sales and operations and president of underwriting and everything there. And, for us to fly over there for a day, spend time in a room with them for 4 or 5 hours, go to dinner. It's things like that where I feel like carriers still want to work with that family-owned agency that where they can build that level of trust, right? And so taking time to do that is something that I'm really proud of our team and of you, and building those relationships with underwriters where we can go and we have that level of trust. Because in our industry, that just to be flat out honest, there's a lot of people who just try to slide stuff through, and there's a lot of gray and different things. And so we just try to be really upfront with underwriters and really diligent in being able to tell that narrative and that story and say, hey, this is why this is a good risk. This is why maybe they've had some claims in the past, but if you look at the last 7 to 10 years, this is the story, right? And then this is what they're trying to do to continually get better. And when there's that high level of trust and it's a relationship and it's a back and forth, and your broker's being honest and upfront with you and showing you what they've done to kind of not plead your case, but to kind of show your story and who you are and what you're about, it creates long-term relationships for the carrier and the agent, for the carrier and the client, for the agent and the client. And it makes things go a lot smoother, because when an underwriter and an agent know your story and know who you are and know what you're about and what your company's trying to do and your goals, that's going to then in effect allow you to have probably better rates, maybe some more flexibility at times, right? Not all the time. There's certain markets that, things get hard and in the market, and you got to kind of balance that. But there's that level of trust like you talk about, and that's a really big deal. What are some things that people can tangibly do if they're like, hey man, I haven't looked at my policy in years. I've never I just look at the premium page. This is how much I got to pay. What are some proactive steps that they can take to get educated more? And then, anything else in the industry going on right now?
Yeah, I think there's kind of a little bit of a fallacy in the client side in their minds that, well, the best way to get a good result is I'm just going to shop this everywhere. So I'm going to call 6 brokers and I'm just going to have everybody all compete to get me the best possible deal. And, that can achieve a result in the short term, but really you're becoming your own insurance broker. If you're feeling like every 2 or 3 years, I have to go talk to 4 or 5 insurance agents and figure out who's going to come in with the best possible rate. What you really should do is interview a couple insurance people and, in your own current agent included, and just figure out what's the plan, what's the strategy, what do you think it's going to look like for this next year or for the next 5 years. Have a long-term perspective on that. And really, at the end of the day, you're picking an agent who's going to be a part of your team, and who's going to be able to anticipate your needs, has access to carriers that are going to be relevant to your industry, and then give that person the ability to go out and tell your story to the insurance companies and get the best result. So instead of making a huge mess of which agent was I talking to here and there, spend some time up front, figure out what your prospective agent is about, and choose that person and let them work, partner up, link arms, and that tends to achieve the best outcomes, at least from what I've seen. And those long-term relationships are critical. And I would say, especially if you start looking at the surety side, for example. So a lot of people, I say surety and it sounds like, that's a word, but people have no idea.
Right. But it's a massive part of our industry.
It's a massive part, and it's a massive part of the construction industry, period.
Yeah. And why is that?
So surety is different than insurance in that, insurance is if an accident happens, the insurance policy pays out, right? In a nutshell. Surety is a contract. It's a 3-party contract that's essentially guaranteeing you're going to perform a job correctly. And that would be in the case of a performance bond. That's one of the most common surety items that we see in construction. We need you to post a performance bond because you're getting this job, and we need to guarantee that you're going to complete it on time, on target, and that there's not going to be any issues. Now, for those surety bonds to get issued in the performance bond context, for a performance bond to get issued, the surety company has to feel comfortable in you as a company that you have the financial resiliency to manage a project if something were to go south, that you have a track record of delivering on time, on target, and that they can then put their stamp of approval on you and say, yes, you qualify for this $1 million public works contract. And there's a lot of opportunity out there for companies to start to get into public works, but it requires a different level of attention to detail and some back end work to even put yourself in position to bid on those types of jobs. So that's where having a CFO or having a CPA who's well versed in getting a contractor set up for surety makes a massive difference. Having a broker that's comfortable with the surety situation can quickly, get bid bonds out on time, can help advise you on, how much capacity can we potentially get? Is this a job worth pursuing? And those are the long-term relationships that, you don't just switch around all the time, but if you're in a position where you don't feel you're getting, the level of surety credit that you would like to have, a lot of times that's a relationship that just needs to be built with an insurance agent and with the surety company. And for me, that's some of the most fulfilling stuff that we do, because, I have one client who's newer in business, but they're running a very, very strong company doing civil projects. And when you start out, you can usually qualify for up to $500,000 for a performance bond.
Because those bonds are all based off your financial, right? So yes. You mentioned CPA and you even mentioned CFO at first, but it's a little bit of both, right? Because you got to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward financially, that you have a certain amount in reserves and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot from the financial side that goes into it, right? And so my grandpa told me back in the day, he goes, if you get into business, he goes, you need to have a good attorney and you need to have a good accountant. Those are two critical things. I
would add a
right?
good insurance agent.
And I would say absolutely. Right. But those are, especially as you're growing in that public works sector, right. Having that relationship with a surety company is a big deal.
It is. And even if residential does slow down and companies are looking for, hey, we need to schedule out more work this year. We're seeing a lot more public funding become available for infrastructure projects and things like that. If you can be in position to even go after those jobs, it's one of those things that it's worth being proactive about. You can't just go out and get a surety bond for $2 million overnight. You really can't. It doesn't move quickly. The underwriting is intense, but by getting in early and starting to build that relationship, you can be in position to go after some really cool contracts. But the client of mine that I'm really proud of. We started off on a credit only program where financials aren't required, but you can bid small projects.
Yeah.
They did a good enough job that when we reevaluated their surety, we were able to triple their capacity quickly. Their rate was cut in half, so their performance bonds cost 50% less than they were prior, and all of that was due to some really proactive financial management by the leadership team at that company. And it's stuff like keep cash in the bank, make sure that we have working capital, make sure that we're liquid, that if something were to go south on a project, we're not, dipping into our line of credit or our credit cards. And by doing that, they're now able to pursue much larger projects than they were even just 2 years ago. And that's really fun for me because you kind of go, yeah, did I save you a couple bucks? Great. But for me, the fact that a company now can open up millions of dollars worth of opportunity for that company to grow into, I think is really fun. It almost makes,
sometimes in the contractor's eyes, it almost makes their insurance policy secondary to the surety relationship there.
Big time.
What's one of the, I guess, the key sides of things for you when you're working on that surety side and you're having that conversation with the underwriter? What's some of the key, what does a conversation look like? Hey, like, are you focusing on where they're trying to grow so you can kind of set the path up for, what the next year or two is going to look like? Is it like just their immediate cash flow? Or are they doing projections as well? And then you're sharing some of those projections. What does that look like for a contractor that's trying to grow in that space, but they're not sure how to get there, right? Because I would say, like, as an insurance industry as a whole, like brokers and stuff a lot of times know the policies, but I feel like a lot of people don't understand surety well in our industry, right? And like, as we're talking, it's a critical piece for significant growth for these contractors.
Yeah. I think it's both. I mean, it's long-term planning and it's, where do you sit currently? Because if you get yourself overextended and you have too many projects going at once and a ball gets dropped on one of them, that can affect your surety. That can affect your relationship with general contractors and with municipalities that you're working with. So, the surety underwriter is and we work with some really, really cool people on the surety side that are fantastic and experienced, and they're looking at it with a long-term perspective on, hey, what does your job scheduling look like? Where does this job fit into your current work in progress schedule? How many guys are going to be on that one? How many on that one? Do you feel confident that we're going to deliver on time, on target? And so in a lot of ways, it's a cool mechanism for just supporting contractors in their future planning and making sure that they're going to be financially resilient over time.
Yeah.
It's not just, and that for me is what I hope that my clients start to learn through the surety process, is not just, well, I need this performance bond so I can do this job. It's your surety relationship is a support to your long-term financial resiliency. And if your surety underwriter is happy with you, that means you're probably doing things right.
Yeah.
And you've got yourself in a really good position. So,
yeah. And if you're constantly setting yourself up right for that and you're in a good position, that then allows your broker to negotiate on your behalf to try to even get more competitive on those rates and things like that, right?
And I do get to see financial statements from contractors that I work with for the surety side, and I every single time, the most profitable contractors that I work with are also my surety underwriter's favorite clients.
Yeah,
because it just gets you to that next level of planning and project selection and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Caleb, anything else that people out there should know, or contractors out there should know, just about the market today or things going on? I'll kind of give you the floor here to wrap it up.
Oh man, what else should they know?
I mean, there's a lot that
so
goes
much
into it, right? And so I know trust is at the base of every deal when you have a good broker on your behalf, but
if I'm trying to tie a bow on it, I suppose, the whole construction industry is still a people business. And I would say in commercial insurance, it's still that as well. We've seen the attempted commoditization of insurance. And I think in personal lines, we see a lot more automation coming quicker. But with insurance and with construction, at the end of the day, the people that you work with make all the difference. The relationships with suppliers, with vendors that a contractor works with can make a massive difference in the profitability and success of a project. Same principle applies when you're working with your insurance broker, with your CFO. Having the right people on your team is how you get the best outcomes. And I think that's kind of universal to business, but in an industry that used to be all handshakes and your word has to mean something.
Hey, look at that. That's my saying right
there.
I
stole it from you. In an industry that was based on handshakes and is now being replaced by, 45-page contracts and your firstborn child is signed away in this thing. It's fun for me to look and see that people do still make a difference and that we can achieve really good outcomes across the board when we have those relationships.
Yeah.
So,
well, over the last 3 years, I've just seen what you've been able to do for our team, for our clients and our community, and just really appreciate all your hard work. It's cool to be able to see you come to work, and train up some of our younger guys, but it's also to see the involvement you have in the community and what you're doing with the foster care system with Skookum and with Linden School District and just other things, and so thanks for all you do, because it's we all come to work to support our families, to try to serve people well, and you do a great job with that. So we just appreciate you and constantly trying to educate people, and so anyway, thanks for being on and taking time and out of your extremely busy schedule. And I'll let you go.
Appreciate it.
Go to your meetings now for the rest of the day.
Thank you, Dan.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.